Hello everyone, happy Diwali. Hope all of you are having a blast preparing for your exams. It's an honor to be here with all of you today, especially the ones who are attending, because even in this festive mood and with so much distraction, happiness surrounding all of you, you have still managed to sit in front of your tablet and watch this live session to help you improve your scores, which is commendable because not a lot of people will do this. They would just want to enjoy, have fun, take a break. But the proof that you're sitting here today on Diwali with me, it's amazing. It's so nice that you have the courage to do that. And I'm so proud of all of you. Now, welcome once again for people who are joining in. The aim of this session was to basically explain the features that have been recently introduced in the Marrow update, the GT Analytics update, so that you can understand what's going on with your preparation, and you use this technology that we are providing you to properly assess where you're going wrong and how you can fix those areas to improve your overall Grand Test scores, which will hopefully eventually translate into getting a great score in the final exam. So when we talk about technology and we talk about analytics and data, these things get me excited because the nerd inside me is always interested in these things. So I'm very excited and pumped for this session. And I hope all of you learn a few important things that I want to tell you here. Now, before we begin, just like every live session that I conduct, I have a few disclaimers here. If you're sitting here thinking that I'm going to give you this secret hack of answering questions in GTs and your score will improve overnight and you will not have to put in any hard work or effort, then this is a video not for you. You're sitting in the wrong place. There is no such hack, right? Nothing beats true hard work and dedication. But the whole aim of this session is to use this technology and dissect your preparation in order to understand and appreciate what your weak areas are and to slowly tune your preparation in the direction that will fix those patches and improve your overall score. So we are going to use this technology and improve your score. Now, who is this session valuable for? This session is extremely valuable for people who have started taking grand tests, right? It doesn't matter whether you're in the beginning of your preparation, in the middle of your preparation, or in the terminal end of your preparation, you have started revisions, it doesn't matter. As long as you're taking grand tests, this session is for you. And this session is especially important for people who have hit a plateau or who is suffering from the problem that we usually face, where our scores are not improving. We have covered a few more subjects and we hope that our scores would improve, but it doesn't. So we are basically here trying to match your aspirations with your reality. That is the whole aim of this session. So if this session will definitely help those people who have hit a plateau or who have not noticed any improvement in their GT scores. We'll tell you why your aspirations are unrealistic and what you should do to actually meet your aspirations. That's what my aim is. Now, before I begin talking about all of these things, data and analytics and how you will improve your scores overall, I want you to first understand two terms. First is benchmark and the second term is a track record. Now, what do you mean by benchmark? I'm sure most of you have heard this term, benchmark. Like, I'll give you an example. Why do we ask this question? Who is the fastest runner on the planet? Which is the tallest building? Who is the most intelligent person? Who's the strongest person? What was the topper's score? Why do we ask these questions? We ask these questions in order to appreciate what is the peak of any performance, right? In order to appreciate how far can anyone reach to the peak of their performance, right? That is why we ask it. So that is the benchmark. Now, what do you do with this benchmark? With this benchmark, you understand that it is humanly possible to get there. Right? For example, till last year, nobody had crossed 1,000 marks on NEET PG. Now, the first time around when Ashraf did it, it was just inspiring. So now we have a new benchmark. We have a benchmark of 1,000 marks, and now we know that anybody can do it because he has done it and he's a human being, right? So that is what a benchmark is. Now, what is a track record? Now, track record is basically your history. Your history. For example, I'll give you a simple example. Say you see a cricket match between two countries, India and Bangladesh. Which country is likely to win? Just write it in the comments. I'm sure we all know the answer. It's just India, because the track record of India is so good. They are an amazing team, and it just says that it will win. And say, for example, in soccer, you say Manchester United versus any Group B or Group C team. Manchester United will obviously win it because they have a very good track record. So this is a track record which basically tells you that you are able to do these things, all right, and you will probably also do it in the future. So it just shows your consistency, and that's what banks use to give out loan. I mean, Vijay Mala is an exceptional case, but otherwise that's what banks use, right? They use your track record, your ability to return the money, and then they give you the loan. Now, with this track record and benchmark, the understanding of these terms, I'll tell you the GT Analytics that is available now in your app is basically an assessment of your track record, and it will give you new benchmarks to break every time. Because now you have the scores and the performance of the topper in front of you, which is your present benchmark, and you have your own track record, that is your GT Analytics, to follow and break that barrier. It's just amazing. It's an immensely powerful tool. I'll show you how we use this, and you will be inspired and surprised. And the most important thing about this is that it is not emotional, it's not biased, it's just pure raw data, right? Sometimes what happens is when we read something very well, we are emotionally biased towards it and we assume that we know it very well, but the reality may be far from it. So this data is just raw, it has no emotions. So if it says that you are weak in a particular subject, it just means you're weak in a particular subject, and you have to trust it, because that's how beautiful and scientific it is. It's just like Google Maps, right? If you want to go from point A to point B and you have no idea how to get there, you just put it on the Google Maps, and most of the times you will definitely reach there without any problem in the shortest amount of time. Are you following me? So that is the power of technology, and that is how and what we are going to harness here. So let me start by showing you what we are going to do here and what are the new features of GT Analytics first, and then I will show you how you can use and adapt it for your benefit. The first thing that I'm going to show you is this is your rank screen, right? This is your rank screen. So you have a live rank, you get a live rank immediately after you finish a GT. Now this is important because there is something known as a predicted rank also, which I don't want you to focus on or trust much, because it's just algorithms generating a random rank for you. Not a random, but a projected rank for you, which is not a good thing. So I think you should rely more on the live rank and try to write GTs when it is live. Don't write it after. If you are very concerned about getting the answers, write it on the last day. You will get the answers the next day around. So live rank, and this is the rank that is the rank based on the people who have attempted the GTs all over, right? Everyone who has attempted the GT, and this is something that you can use as a baseline to assess your improvement. And then you can also see your score here. You would get a score. I mean, that is a standard scoring system of NEET PG, +4 for a correct answer and -1 for a negative answer. Now, I want to bring your focus to a thing that is more important than the score. Most of the students I come across are stuck up on the score. You have to understand that score absolutely means nothing. I mean, it does mean something, but it really doesn't matter. It doesn't decide your rank. What decides your rank is your percentile. What decides your rank is your percentile. This is the most powerful number that you should focus on, because this percentile tells you where you stand among the crowd who has written the exam. Now, surprisingly, most of the students I've talked to don't understand the term percentile. They don't understand what percentile means. Essentially, there is no standard definition of percentile. I'm not a mathematician, but I would say a percentile is the number, say if your percentile is 90%. It just simply means that you're above 90% of the crowd, which means you're in a very good position. If your percentile is 99%, it simply means that you're above 99% of the population who has attempted that exam. So are you following? So percentile means in comparison or in relation to the number of people who have attempted the exam. So it's not percentage per se, but it's percentile. It's more powerful because it's relative to the number of people who have attempted the exam. Samajh gaya? So if 100 people write it and you are in 99 percentile, it means 99 people are below you, right? So 99 people are below you. You're so good. You're so good. Now, you can get a low score at a very good percentile, right? Are you following me? So score essentially does not matter. What matters is your percentile. And I'll talk more about this. The next thing that I want you to focus on is your responses. How many responses you got correct, how many responses you got wrong, and how many you have skipped. This is a very important number to keep in check. right? How many questions you have skipped, how many are you getting correct, how many of you are getting it wrong. After that, what you can also analyze is the toppers. What did toppers do? How many did they get correct? How many did they get wrong? How many did they skip? So this gives you the benchmark right from the start, right? You know what the topper has done. You know what the topper has done, and you know what you have to do to get there. So 266 were correct and 32 were wrong, and he skipped 2 questions, right? So this is the power of your new analytics. Now you have this new anonymous test taking option where you can hide your name if you don't want it to be revealed. I'm sure this will be handy, especially for people, those sneaky people who always tell you that they have not even bought the book yet and suddenly end up topping the exam, right? So I would just want to give slow claps to the Marrow tech team for coming up with this awesome solution, and for people who have actually requested this solution. It is insane, but clearly Marrow people don't discriminate, and congratulations, you have this now. You can write as many tests as you want. Nobody will know whether you have done well or not, but at the end of the day, I really think it should not matter, because jab rank aayega to aayega na. So but it's okay. I think that is something you can use if you don't want the world to know that you are starting from a base. The next thing is your guess tracking. Right? This is a very, very powerful tool, and I will tell you why, and I'll show you what are the various places you can use this to understand yourself, because everyone is different. Not everyone has the ability to guess. Not everyone has good luck. Most of the people have bad luck, and this is what will tell you why your luck is good and bad, and it will help you understand whether you are a good guesser or not. So what you have to do here is, when you are marking an option, just tick mark the guess answer. So this tells the back end that this is the answer you have marked, but you're guessing it. You don't know the accurate answer. Now based on this, the analysis will be run, and it will tell you at the end whether your guesses are good or guesses are bad. So this is something that you should pay attention to. This is very powerful. Although this will not be available in the final exam, but this is what will help you practice for the final exam. The next thing is your performance. Now there are 2 types of performances. First is per test performance, and then there is an overall performance, which is just amazing. The test performance over here gives you this spider graph, right? So there are 4 circles of this spider graph. So the outermost circle is say 100%, and then you have 75%, then 50% and 25%. Now this graph basically represents your scores in relation to the toppers. Right, in relation to the toppers. So average score of toppers in this test. Suppose this test was very hard for you. All you have to do is just look at this spider graph and see where you stand in terms of your score against the toppers, relative to toppers. So if the paper was tough, it will be tough for you as well as for toppers. So your spider graph would be in the range of these toppers on this test. Okay, so obviously this example that I've taken here, this person is extremely good in forensic medicine, much better than the toppers, but unfortunately is very weak in all the other subjects. The same thing goes for obs and gynecology. Their obs and gyn is very good. You understood this? You have understood the web of this spider analytics. It's beautiful. It just tells you where you stand in terms of this test relative to the toppers of that test. So this is not an overall score. You don't have to worry about that, but this is about this one test. It gives you a very good idea of where you are represented. So try to make this whole spider graph yellow eventually. So it's an expanding growth of your knowledge. The next thing is your subject analysis, per subject analysis. This is a straightforward analysis where you just understand, based on this one test, this one grand test, what are the scores that you have accumulated per subject. So what is your strongest subject and what is your weakest subject, and how many questions you got wrong, how many questions you got correct, and how many you skipped. And again, this is not only an isolated report card of your performance, but also in comparison to everyone else. Now the next thing is simple, right? It's the time taken for the whole test. So 3.5 hours for your NEET PG exam. So the total time taken. Now there are 4 times here. There is a total time here. There is a time for answering, and there is a time for reviewing, and there is an average time per answer. Now the total time is the total time of the exam that you have taken, which I think you can just gather the info with the stopwatch also. So nothing special here. But what is special and powerful here is that there is something known as time for answering. So this just basically accumulates the time that you have taken from clicking the new question till the time you have actually pressed on one answer. So this is the time your brain takes to process the question and come to an answer. All right, and then the time for reviewing, this is very powerful. This is the time that you have spent on the question instead of moving on to the next question. So this is maybe you trying to think for an alternate answer. This is maybe you second guessing yourself. This is maybe you changing the options. So how much time are you spending on a question even after you have marked it? All right, this gives you an idea about yourself. Are you a person who doubts yourself? All right. So this person over here has spent 24 minutes of their 3.5 hours in the exam reviewing the question. They were waiting on that very question instead of moving to the next question. So this is very powerful. I would want you to kind of minimize that. I want you to minimize that. Then there is something known as average time per answer. So this person has 38 seconds, an average time per answer, which is not a bad number, but I want you to understand that since you have 300 MCQs in your exam, and you have a 3.5 hour period, I want you to keep an average of 42 seconds. So try to keep an average of 42 seconds. So this is a good number, 38 seconds is a good number per MCQ. Try to keep it under 45. This is an average because some questions you can answer in a few seconds. And for some questions you need minutes. So this becomes an average, don't worry about it. If on an average you can keep the answers below 42 seconds, you are in a very, very safe zone. Another important thing is changed answers. Now nobody will tell you this, and you probably, when you were probably giving exams previously before the whole technological inflow, you had these OMR sheets, right? You would rub it and then you would correct your answer and all, and then you would come to one answer that suited your response. So this tells you changed 8 answers. So this basically tells you how many answers you changed and how many of them actually were correct after changing it. So this again gives you an idea about your abilities and about your confidence. So if you are a person who usually changes a lot of answers, please try to look at this analysis. See if you're getting more correct. If you're getting more correct after changing, that means that you should trust your gut. You should trust your feelings of changing the answer once. But if not, if you're making a lot of mistakes by changing the answer, review the question and see if you hadn't changed it, would the answer have remained same? If the answer would have remained correct, then I think you should not change your options. All right. So this gives you an idea about you. You see, I cannot sit here and tell you what you should do. Right? We are providing you tools to understand yourself. So please try to understand yourself and find out what type of a person you are. Now coming to the overall GT analytics, your overall progress analytics. This is the new things that have been introduced in the new update. This is wonderful. This is so powerful. It gives you the information all the way from your first grand test up to the last test that you have written. And it shows you a progress which is very beautiful to see if you have slowly progressed, right? So this person over here has a very beautiful graph, and you see that they have progressively grown over time. This is the graph that you should focus on, not this kind of a graph. So obviously don't focus on decline. Some of you, most of you have hit a plateau. Try to improve your score. Now again here you will notice two things, a red dot and this yellow bar. Yellow bar is your score, which again I told you your scores don't matter. What matters is your percentile. Try to have a higher percentile, which means that you're better among the most people writing that test. So what you should focus on is that whether your percentile is increasing or not. Don't worry about your score. Your scores can fluctuate, but your percentile should consistently improve. Don't panic if it is not improving, but try to improve it. All right? If you're already at 80 to 90%, you're in a good area. I mean, it's not an area where you should relax, try to go for more, but you're in a safe area. Try to have a percentile of more than 90 percentile. All right. So focus on percentile rather than your score, right? Please hammer this into your head. Percentile is more important than the score, right? I get messages from students saying, sir, ye GT mein I got this much score, and the last GT was this much score, and this GT was very, very poor, I got this score. But what is your percentile? Is it the same? Is it improving? Right? So classical example, look at this score. Look at this score. The score has actually dipped here for this individual. But what has happened? The percentile has improved. So scores do not matter, percentiles matter. Now, this is a breakdown of your overall strong subject. Now, among the overall preparation and among your overall GTs that you have attempted and written, this is the percentile of the strength of your subject from top to bottom. Now, this is a very, very strong thing. This is because sometimes what happens is you write a GT and the questions that were asked in that particular subject were easy. So, your percentile for that subject suddenly improves, but your subject is still weak because your overall score, your overall preparation score for that subject would have been low. So, this is something that gives you a balanced view of your subject preparation. If your subjects are 85 or 85 above on this percentile, overall percentile score, that is a very good, nicely done subject for you. That is your strong subject, nothing to worry about. Right? So, focus more on this rather than the percentile or the individual GT subject scores. Focus on this. Now, with that said, I have basically showed you what are the new features that we have brought about for you to take advantage of and to use it to make your life easy and your work more efficient. Now, with that said, I think we should now discuss your problems, which I have gathered based on the messages and the text and the messages that I've gotten from the students and the feedback from the Marrow team, that these are the essential problems students face with their grand tests. So what I'll do now is I'll discuss these problems which already have at hand. And trust me, because I know students, I would have answered most of your questions even before you write them in the live Q&A session. So pay attention to the questions, pay attention to what I have to tell you as a solution, and if that works for you, your problem is sorted, your problem is solved. Don't write a question. But if your question is not sorted and if your problem is not solved, then you can write me a question which we can discuss in the live Q&A session. Till then, listen to the problems. These are universal problems. Almost every student preparing for the exam is facing this, and I understand it. And I'll give you the solutions. And I'll try to give you scientific solutions to these problems that will help you grow your score. Now, the first problem is, sir, scores are not improving. Right? Classical answer, right? Classical problem, my scores are not improving. I have finished reading, my scores are not improving. I have done one revision, I am still getting the same scores. Now, this is what you need to do. Since if you have started writing GTs from the beginning, it is more valuable now, right? So, another important thing that I want to tell you here is, as many GTs as you write, the data will become more and more better and refined for you. So, try to write as many GTs as you can. This data, this analytics will work better if you write more GTs. If you do one test, that will give you a test analytics. Overall analytics ke liye, you need to write as many GTs as possible. So coming back to the problem, my scores are not improving. So if your scores are not improving, the simple solution is to find out what your weak areas are. Now, how will you find out your weak areas? This is the question, how to identify your weak areas. Now we have data with us. We have technology here that will help us identify our weak areas. Now you have two analytics in front of you. So suppose you write one GT and you get this GT breakdown, this test breakdown telling you what is your strongest subject and weakest subject. Now contrast this analysis with your overall analysis. Now what will happen? Suppose your obs and gyn was a very strong subject according to overall analysis, and in this GT your obs and gyn has fallen down. What does it mean? It means your obs and gyn is still a very strong subject, but you have performed poorly in this test. So it means that there is a knowledge gap for this test only. That does not mean overall your performance in obs and gyn is poor. It's just that you did not do well only in this test. So now you have two solutions. One is to quickly go and revise that weak subject and rectify the problem. And the second most powerful assessment here is that you can now just see the questions that you've made mistakes in obs and gyn and work there. Now this will help you in one more way. This will reduce your GT review time, which many of the students crib about. They say, sir, after writing GT, we don't get time to review the whole paper. This is where you start. This is where you start. If you know that obs and gyn is a subject which is supposed to be a strong subject, and now you have not scored well in that test, go and read the questions of obs and gyn first, and only probably that. Are you following me? And I'll tell you how you approach these review questions also. and how you give time to it. But what I'm trying to show you here is that this analysis will tell you which subjects you should review after writing a GT, and which subject is your poor subject. Otherwise, you would have no idea. Right? So compare it with an overall analysis, with a test analysis, and see what is the delta, what is the difference. Why is there this difference? Why was obs and gyne tough for you this time? Did they ask a lot of cancer questions? Was there a lot of obstetric questions? And maybe those obstetric questions were your weak areas. Are you following me? So this gives you an idea of what your weak areas are. Once you know your weak areas and you work on it and you fix it, you've sorted the problem and your score should improve. And this is what happens. Most of the students, they don't do this. They understand that they did not score well in obs and gyne, so they go and review obs and gyne in toto. You don't have to do that now. You just have to focus on the areas which you did not mark correctly in this test. Like, for example, ovarian tumors. You are weak in ovarian tumors, go and revise ovarian tumors. Okay. Okay, so this is how you identify your weak areas with pinpoint sniper-like accuracy with the help of this analysis. Now, another perennial question I get is, what is a good score? I mean, I've told you, I keep on telling you, scores do not matter. It's the percentile what matters. But you always seem to not agree. You just can't satisfy yourself. You want to know what is the score, what is a good score. All right. So what we have done is, with the power of the data and the analytics that we have, the backend team has generated the average numbers of scores our toppers get. So I'll tell you this. Usually our topper, our first ranker gets approximately around 980 marks. Approximately around 980 marks. And the top 100 scorers usually get around 701 marks. So around 701 marks. Top 1000 scorers, they get approximately top 1000 scorers will get approximately 566 marks. All right. So 100, 701, 1000, 566. And top 10,000 scorers, they get approximately 301 marks. So again, I wouldn't rely too much on marks. Like I said, marks do not matter, percentile matters. But if you really insist on knowing the numbers, what is the average number marks these toppers get? So this is in front of you. First ranker around 980, 100, 701, 1000, 566, top 10,000, 301. Now, the second problem is still the scores are not improving. And even after you do this, if your scores are not improving, what will you do? Now, there are many reasons why your scores will not improve. You have to see why did you make a mistake in that subject, right? So what is the reason your scores are consistently falling in one particular subject, even if you have read it, reviewed it? So what kind of mistakes are you making? This brings me to silly mistakes or questions from concepts or areas that you are unaware of. So if it was silly mistakes, you just identify why you made that mistake. What was the reason? Was the language of the question different? All right. Was it confusing, or did you not remember it? If that was the case, if you know that you made a mistake and you shouldn't have, that's easy, right? Sort it out, identify that mistake, learn and move on. If it was a new question, coming from territories that you had not explored previously, you can possibly explore that territory and improve your score. But here is the problem. There will be new questions in your exam. You cannot run behind every new question. So how do you tackle this problem? So thanks to Marrow now, when you see a new question, look at the hashtags. Is it a recent question? Is it a recent need question? Is it a previous question? Is it an important question, or is it a recent update? Look at these hashtags. If it has any of these, pay attention to it. If it has nothing, it's just a bouncer question, you can probably just work around and move away from it. Don't worry about it. All right. So silly mistake hai, to identify why you're making a mistake and fix it. Now, most of the students also sometimes feel that the exam is tough based on the difficult questions, and they think that they scored less because the exam was tough, because there were many unfamiliar questions and they got a low percentile. See, exam tough or easy is the same for everybody. Right? It is tough for everybody, it is easy for everybody. What matters is the easy questions. Hard questions don't matter. You don't know this. You think that if you answer hard questions, you get a good rank, you get a good score. That doesn't happen. You have to answer simple questions correctly. What basically means is, the questions that you should have gotten correct, you should get correct. The questions that you should have gotten correct, you should get correct. The questions that were previously asked, you cannot afford to make a mistake there. And if you make a mistake there, that is what I call a silly mistake. You should not make mistakes in the questions that were already asked. Nobody cares. I get messages from students saying, sir, I answer difficult questions well, but easy questions I miss out. I assume your guessing game is super, right? But guessing game will not give you the rank. You should focus on the easy questions, and these easy questions will come to you only and only if you revise and explore that subject. Don't worry about the hard questions. Hard questions, if you miss also, nothing will happen, all right? Next, then how do you avoid the silly mistakes, sir? How do you avoid? Simple. Try to finish early. Try to finish early and try to review the paper. Try to finish early and try to review the paper. Look at the language of the question. Was it an all except question? Was it all question? Was it none of the above question? Was it all of the above question? Look at the language of the question. Don't get tricked by the examiner. If you get tricked, you make a mistake. All right. Now, if you have identified that you have made a silly mistake here, this is what I want you to do. I want you to make checkpoints so that you don't make that silly mistake again. Right? Don't make that silly mistake. How do you do that? Look at where you got it. Where was the problem for you? What made you confused? Why did you get confused with that question? Right? I'll give you a simple example. Say if I ask you, what is the most common bone tumor in children? What will you answer? You will say osteosarcoma. But if I ask you what is the most common bone tumor in the first decade of life, you will say Ewing sarcoma. But if I ask you what is the most common bone tumor in the second decade of life, you will say osteosarcoma. If I ask you Ewing sarcoma occurs most commonly in which decade, you will have to say second decade. So although all of these things sound the same, they are different. So what you need to do is, if you come across a question where you find that the language is similar and you're likely to fall into this trap, prepare a checkpoint. Tell yourself, okay, if the wordings of the question will be like this, this is what I will answer. If the wordings change to this, this is what I will answer. So basically prepare yourself for these games. Prepare yourselves for these tricks, and this is how you avoid silly mistakes. Not by just randomly reviewing the same notes that you have read again and again, right? So these are the checkpoints that you have to make. Look at the language and prepare yourself of how I will avoid this mistake if the language changes like this. And even after doing this, you're still not confident in that topic, then go to the sparring arena. You have your custom modules. Play with custom modules, focus your topics in that custom modules and that your weak areas, and try as many MCQs as you can. That's a very wonderful tool. Use custom modules to approach your difficult areas. Another important hack is, and this usually worked for me, I don't know if it will work for you or not, but try it and see. See, when you read a question, as soon as you finish the question, don't look at the options here. Try to think of an answer in your mind. And usually, sometimes, I will not say usually, I will say sometimes the answer does come to your mind because you have been prepared or exposed to that kind of a question. And when that answer comes to your mind, usually that is the answer. Then go look at the options. Most probably you will find it there. Mark it and move on. Right? So this has helped me avoid silly mistakes, identifying my weak areas, preparing myself for these twisted questions and words, and thinking of an answer before reading the options. All right? This has worked for me. The next thing I want to talk about is what to do when we are confused between two options. What to do when we are confused between two options. So again, I think I have talked about this in the previous thing, in previous 5 minutes. This is what I was talking about. If you get confused between two options, it just simply means that you don't know what the specific part of the question you should look for in order to answer that, whether it's the first decade or second decade or most common wala example I've given you. Just look at that and identify what you will mark based on the wordings of the question. All right. Now, should you change the answers? Should you change the answers? Once you have marked, should you change the answers or not? A universal question. Everybody asks me, should I change the answer? Some people say trust your gut. Some people say don't trust your gut. Right, what to do, sir? Should I change the answer? Well, honestly, science says it's actually split. Some say that you should trust your gut. You have experience, you have practiced so many tests, you should not change the answer because naturally the best answer will come to you. On the other hand, the other school of thought is that you should change the answer because there is something known as memory bias, a fear of regret bias. A fear of regret bias is when you change an answer and suppose it goes wrong, it hurts you because you're getting something wrong out of act of commission rather than act of omission. Human beings, you and I, when we make a mistake or something bad happens to you, if it happens to us because of doing something, we tend to remember it longer, rather than if it happens to us without doing anything, we tend to just, blame it on our luck and God and move on. So if you are committing a change and it goes wrong, you're likely to remember it longer. So at the end of the day, what it means is that the science is still divided. We don't know what to do. But we have Marrow, right? We have technology here. We have guess tracking. So what you should do as an individual is whenever you are confused and you want to change the answer, you change the answer or don't change the answer, but mark it for guess tracking, right? Now what happens is when the analysis comes out after your test, you will understand that the questions that you have changed were either correct or not, right? So this tells you about you, whether your guessing skill or whether you are the person who's changing the answer for a correct or a wrong, whether you are a person who's changing it for correct or you are a person who's changing for wrong. Now once you know this about yourself, right, you have now discovered that you usually mark the first answer as a correct option. Now that should be your baseline. That should be your standard. That should be your modus operandi in the exam. You should not change the options. But if you realize that you get the correct answers after changing the options, then by all means keep changing the options, right? So now this is not a dice question. Now this is not a toss question. You can decide what type of person you are thanks to your guess tracking. And based on guess tracking, for me, I have analyzed based on the 3 GTs that I have performed, is that I usually mark well when I mark the first time around. So that is just me. That's my personal analysis. You can be different. So please keep an eye on that. Right? Now, to skip or not to skip. To skip a question or not to skip a question. Beautiful. Right. What should you do? You come across a question and you cannot rule out any option and you have no clue about the topic, and should you safely skip it or you take the risk of answering it? Now, I'll just give you the data here first, the science here, what our backend team tells us, and then I'll tell you how you can actually understand what type of a person you are. See, the top 100 ranks skip very few questions. If you want exact figures, the top 50 skip on an average only 5 questions, and the top 100 only skip on an average 8 questions. So are you understanding this? So top 100 rankers only skip 8 questions. They attempt 292 questions. That's immense, right? So how many do you skip? Do you skip 20? Do you skip 30? Do you skip 40? We have a benchmark here. We know how many they skip, and that is what we should target now. We should not target anything more than 10 or 15. Right? I personally feel a good 280 for a 300 mark paper is a good number of attempt. But we'll talk more about that. So should you skip or not? I have the numbers here and you decide whether you should skip or not. Now, guessing, should you guess or not? If you can't skip it, should you guess or not? Again, your guess tracker will help you. Are you a smart guesser or not? Is luck on your side or not? If you are a person who's consistently getting many negatives or more negatives out of all the questions that they have guessed, which will be there at the end of your analysis just before the beautiful Marrow Heart, just see who you are. Are you a good guesser? Then that is your strength. Use it in the exam. If you're a poor guesser, then please do not guess. Right? So when you do that, when you mark for guess and then you answer the exam, and when you see the results, you will understand how many times you have changed and how many times you have guessed and what is your accuracy in terms of your guessing, whether you're a good guesser or bad. So again, nothing to chance here. This will give you the data about yourself. Please utilize it to understand what type of person you are and write it down. Tell yourself, I am not a good guesser, I will not guess. All right? If you're a good guesser, yes, I am a good guesser, luck has always favored me, I will take the risk. Now, next problem, big problem is, sir, what will I do or what should I do when I come across a bad batch of questions? Sir, I've started doing GTs and then there are 5 or 6 or 7 questions that I have skipped or I have not answered, and I feel very depressed and I go into a spiral of pain and sorrow. What should I do? Now, you will invariably come across a bad patch. That will be there, that will happen to everybody. Sometimes it comes in the beginning, sometimes in the middle, sometimes in the end. It's just a matter of luck, but it will be there. Now, usually you come across this bad patch is you start to skip questions. So, coming to the original point, why are you skipping the questions? Right? Why are you skipping the questions? Are you hoping that miracles will happen? Are you thinking that suddenly you will get the answer to that question without any remote knowledge about that subject? Will that happen to you? If you think that will happen to you, then you're mistaken, right? So if you're genuinely going to skip it for absolutely zero knowledge, okay. But if you have some knowledge about that question and you for sure know that you're not going to recall it, might as well mark it and move on. See, the biggest challenge here, whether to skip or not to skip, in order to overcome a bad patch, is to muster the courage to make a decision. Essentially, that is the problem. You have to muster the courage to make a decision. Make a decision now. A, B, C, D. Because you have to do it now, because the answers will not change afterwards. Right? The knowledge will not suddenly come to you. Nobody is sitting there trying to tell you the answer. You muster the courage, mark it and move on. Or you can take a leapfrog. Jump ahead, say 20 or 30 questions and then continue doing. But I still personally feel, that is my belief, I mean maybe it will work for you or maybe it will not, that if you're coming across a series of questions which you're unable to answer, ask yourself, why am I skipping these questions? Do I know anything about them or not? If you don't know anything about it, don't feel bad. But if you know something about it, muster the courage, mark the answer then and there and move on, man. Because honestly, that answer will not suddenly come to you. Unless it's something that you are trying to remember and you are sure it will come to you. Right? If that's how sure you are, then you can mark for review and go ahead. Otherwise, I personally feel if the situation of your knowledge about that question is going to remain the same, might as well mark now and move on. All right? Don't waste your time, because that will cascade into wasting your time and the spiral of depression that I was talking about. If you muster the courage, mark and move on. There will be a pain, it will be painful, but that is why you're training, right? That's why you're practicing many tests, so that this pain is minimized, right? We'll come to that. I'll tell you why practicing these tests are important. The next question is time management. I'm surprised actually, 3.5 hours seems to be less for students. And I think these are the people who have just started taking tests. It's not the people who are have gained a few experience among these tests. Just hold on. So I think 3.5 hours should not be a bad time. It is actually a good time, and the reason you're not able to complete the test in 3.5 hours is for two reasons, simple two reasons. One is you don't have practice, right? You lack the mental and the body stamina, the mental and the physical stamina to sit through 3.5 hours in an exam. And the only way you can overcome this is with practice, right? You can only overcome with this practice. Second reason that you don't find time adequate for your exam is that you don't have the knowledge. So it's either practice or knowledge, because if you don't have the knowledge, even if you read the question 20 times, you will still not get the answer. All right, so that is probably where you're wasting time. So I still don't think the time is a huge problem, but if it is, there is another reason, and that reason is that usually when we start an exam, right, we want to do it well, we want to answer well, because so much is riding on it, our life depends on it. What will people say? So we try to mark the perfect answers, and in the beginning itself we waste quite a lot of time. Trying to mark the perfect answer, reviewing it multiple times and over analyzing each questions. You should not do that. You should be ruthless from the first question itself, right? So there is a running joke about dads. That joke is, if you have a flight, so typical dad would start asking everyone to get ready 12 hours before the flight, right? That's how parents are, or particularly dads are. Beta chalo ready ho jao, flight hai. Kab hai papa? Kal subah, right? So the reason they are pressurizing you from the beginning itself is that there should not be any delay. So what I'm trying to say is, when you start marking the first question itself, put the pedal to the metal. Right, just push it hard from the first question itself. There is no first gear, second gear, third gear, I'll increase my speed later. Nahi, pehle hi question se you should be on fire. And when you do that, you will probably save time towards the fag end of the exam. But if you don't do that, if you relax in the beginning, then you will obviously have no time left in the end. Please understand that every question has equal value. It doesn't matter आपने medicine correct कर लिया और ENT गलत कर, nobody cares. आपको forensic में you will get the same mark, medicine में you will get the same mark, ENT will get the same mark. So try to look at each question as an independent problem and solve it and move on, and try to be aggressive in terms of speed from the beginning itself. Don't have a relaxed pace in the beginning, from the first question to the last. And sometimes you come across very easy questions, an image question, it's a spotter. Just look at the question, look at the options, mark and move on. Correct? And especially for some people, when you come across long questions, you will find that you are wasting a lot of time. You are wasting a lot of time with that question, right? You know it, yaar yaad hai mujhe, it's there, arey kya yaar ye. So what you do is, you either take the courage and take the leap of faith and mark the answer and move on, or if you can predict that you're going to waste a lot more time if you wait with this question, mark for review and move on. Because that question should not destroy your chances of answering a few more questions in the future. Are you following me? So you have to be very careful here. Agar lag raha hai, time nikal raha hai, if you feel that the time is going on, mark for review and move on. Alright, mark for review and move on. The next interesting problem I see among students is, sir, I get more negative when I attempt more questions. I get more negative marks when I attempt more questions. Now, in response to this question, what would you want? Do you want the harsh truth or the reassuring lie? What do you want from me? All right? The harsh truth is that you're getting more negatives not because you're attempting more questions, it's only because you lack the knowledge to answer those questions. I know it's painful, but don't feel bad. But that's the reality. See, how many questions do toppers skip? I've told you, right? 5 to 8 to 10, that's it. They attempt 280 to 90 questions. They don't leave out. So why are they getting a good score and you are not? So it's not because you're attempting more, it's just that you don't know the correct answers. So try to know the answers, try to read more, increase your knowledge. All right, it's not a number of mathematics. Number of mathematics does play a role, but it's your knowledge also, right? It's mostly your knowledge. So just because you're attempting more does not mean that you're getting negative more. Okay. Time management in GT analysis review. All right, time management in GT review. Now you've finished writing the GT and now you have to review the answers of the question. This is another big problem for students, especially now because you don't have a lot of time. So how do you review the questions after writing the GT? Now there are multiple ways of doing it. All right, so I'll share a few and you can use whatever works with you or for you. The first is skim through things. This is very important. You have to skim through things. You should not read everything line by line. This is a big problem for the perfectionists, right? Because what happens is, even though you know the answer, even though you've gotten the answer correctly, you're like, nahi, I want to read it more, I want to read it perfectly, maybe I will find something new hidden somewhere, the hidden pearl or the gem in the explanation. Honestly, it doesn't matter, man. You got it right, you should move on because you don't have time now. You don't have time now. So I would personally focus on the questions that I got wrong only. All right, because the questions that I got right are right. I know that, right? What is the worst that can happen? They can just twist the words and ask the question again in a different form. So don't worry about it. So focus on the areas which you have gotten wrong, and particularly which areas. So here again, I will bring you the analysis, the GT subject, GT test analysis and the overall analysis. Compare this. So if there is a subject that you're supposed to be good at overall and now you're poor in this particular test, this is the subject where you should start with reviewing the answers. All right. I give you an example of ovarian cancer in gynecology and I'm sure you can use that example here. So देख लो gynec में अगर आपका वो area weak है because there were 10 questions from tumors, work on tumors. Don't read the whole gyne, just the tumor area. So because overall your subject is stronger, it's weak in this test. Work around that. So start from the areas which you have failed or which you have answered poorly. Don't reread the questions that you have gotten correct, but also focus on the areas which you have guessed, right? This is very important because it will tell you why you were guessing it and why you were confused. and this is the learning point here from the GT analysis review. Don't try to read all through the GT review. Don't do that. 300 questions you have marked. I'm sure you have gotten 150, 160 correct, right? So leave them. You only have to do around 130 and 140 questions. Just review them, read them, and that way you'll be able to finish the review in time. Otherwise, you'll not have time and you will feel panicked. Now, the second thing what you can do is you can allot a particular time of the day to review. So, suppose you write a test on a Sunday. So, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. In these 4 days, you allot 2-3 hours every day to review the GT. But again, please review only the areas which you have not done well in. You don't have to re-review the things that you were good at. Another funny problem that I am getting from students is, sir, I am unable to sit for 3 hours in the exam. Don't you watch movies for 3 hours? I really don't think this is a valid question. You need practice, man. You need to practice your mind and body to sit for 3 hours, and this is your life. You have to do this. I cannot find ways to tell you how to sit for 3 hours in the exam. This is your exam. You should do it. Anxiety is another important problem. Most of the students complain of anxiety. Yeah, everyone is anxious. I get anxious. I get anxious when I get on an aeroplane. I get anxious when my wife is driving. People get anxious, right? I still get anxious when I operate. I mean, recently, a few months ago, I had injured my finger and I was not able to operate for a few weeks. And I did operate after a few weeks, but I was still anxious. I thought maybe I had forgotten. But the only way you can honestly overcome anxiety of the exam is by doing it again and again, exposing yourself to this fear. The problem is this anxiety prevents you from attempting these tests, right? So it's a catch-22 situation. मतलब दर्द भी तू है, दवा भी तू है, right? So the test is the pain and the test is the solution. What will you do? I think you have to overcome this barrier, and the easiest way to overcome test anxiety is to constantly exposing yourself to that fear and that environment. Right? There is honestly no other way. People take medications, people do medications. These things work, but the best solution to this problem is to expose yourself. The fear of unknown is what is making you anxious. If you know what it is, why will you be afraid anymore? Right? Why will you be afraid anymore? So expose yourself to this stressful environment of test. Write tests in that time period of the exam. Write it in that circumstances, and avoid stress causing ingredients. Tea, coffee, Red Bull, these things, they just make you more anxious. Now I think this is the time I will take a few of your questions. If I have not addressed any of these, then I will try to answer them. But if I have already addressed the questions, I don't think it's a very good idea to answer them again. Sir, what to do when GT percentile go up and down and again up? Same issue with number of guessed correct questions. I mean, I've talked about it, right? I've talked about it. I just analyze your weak areas. What are your weak areas? Identify them and work on them. 80, I tried following the 150-day plan. I'm still left with biochemistry and physiology. Should I try and finish that, or should I start revising the ones I've already done? You should start revising, and you should do the subjects that are left within a few hours every day slowly. Humanity First says, sir, I'm a severe chronic sinusitis. My head remains heavy every time, but during exam, once sit for longer time, my head becomes very heavy and mind get blocked. I couldn't make guesses. Please answer. Right? I understand that sinusitis blocks your sinuses, but blocking your mind, right? I understand what you're saying. Is basically what you need to do is get some medication to help you clear up your sinuses before the exam. At least in those 3 hours of your exam, you should be comfortable. Right? Sir, what about the old GTs and mocks of 2008? Shall we give them? If you have time, you can, but if you don't, at least attempt the GTs that are coming from now onwards. And that is a very good segue to tell you why Marrow GTs are something that you should not miss and why they are good. The reason is, technology again. They are tweaked, right, based on the trends, based on your analysis, based on the feedback from students. Sometimes students tell that the test was hard, and we understand that it was hard because it was just extreme in certain subjects. So we tweak it. So it's very simple. So we tweak it and then make it more reasonable to the caliber of the NEET PG exam. So I think because being a technology platform, we can do that. So you're lucky to be exposed to these kind of tests. So I think that is the reason you should write tests, and the recent tests will be much better than the previous tests by any which way. All right. I started from 1 month back when to start GT. Now, if you know me well, if you have heard about anything from me in terms of preparation, strategy or exam, you know the answer to this question. Now, I want all of you to answer this in the comments right now. When should you start taking grand tests? When should you start taking grand tests? What should be the answer? Yes, the answer should be yesterday. You should start taking grand tests yesterday. There is no perfect time. You should start taking grand tests now. Safe GT percentile, right? Percentile, safest percentile for you to get your clinical seat or for you to get the seat that you want is anything above 85 to 90%. Above 85 to 90% is a safe percentile, right? Which means that you are above 85 to 90% of the people, which means that you will get the seat that you want. So I think that is the safe percentile. Sir, please answer maximum increment in percentile that we can expect in the upcoming months. Right, so this again depends on your performance and your preparation. You can go from 0 to hero, depends on what you are. You can increase your performance by quickly fixing the areas where you're weak in, and then you will notice the improvement. So sometimes it can take a few days, sometimes it can take a few weeks, and sometimes it can be just 1 day before the exam. So don't lose hope. You will improve, you can improve. So what should be the sequence for attending NEET? Part 1, 2, 3, or start with the section we are good in? So it doesn't matter, honestly, it doesn't matter. You can start wherever and however you like, but specific just few days or a few weeks before the NEET PG exam, I'll probably come again and give you a strategy for the NEET exam. Every time I do GT, this is Shyam, he says, I do well in the last 5 to 7 subjects I've studied last. What to do? And the other subjects I'm unable to do. It's a clear classical example of your lack of revision. Just revise. Schedule your revisions accordingly in such a way that you cover at least 10 to 12 subjects before a GT. All right. So if you revise more, you will get more correct. This is not rocket science. This is not something out of this world. It's not miraculous. It's not a mystery. You have the data in front of you. You have evidence in front of you. You know where you're weak. Just work on your areas and fix them, man. It's so simple. I mean, if we had this kind of power when we were preparing, life would have been amazing, right? Life would have been amazing. Now, please understand that what we have done for you is beyond our call of duty, right? We have gone overboard with everything that we can provide to you. We have integrated pearls with MCQs for you now. So if you're revising pearls or if you're reading pearls, now we have MCQs related to those pearls, which makes your life enormously easy. Just click on those MCQs and do the questions, man, right? We have given you this analytics, right? This is so much data and so much power given to you for free to understand how you are and what you are and to tweak your progress. We are doing these live sessions to understand where you are going weak and to help you and to guide you and to mentor you throughout this preparation. So just because you're signed up to Marrow and this is an online platform and you're sitting alone at home and preparing, don't feel that. We are here for you, right? And that is why we are so frequently coming here and talking to you guys. We have changed the platform to suit you best, right? People complain of eye pain. We have given you the sepia mode, the dark mode, and the custom modules is such a powerful tool. We have recently conducted the image-based sessions, and on popular demand, we have given you all the slides. So everyone here at Marrow is obsessing about how they can do something good for the students. So this is amazing. This is amazing. You're in extremely good hands, and understand that questions do not change. Right? The knowledge does not change. The questions can be conceptual, questions can be factual. These are the standard questions. So factual questions, universally we know we have to memorize. There is nothing we can do. Conceptual questions, we know that we have to understand. There is nothing new you can do. New questions, recent updates, right? It's okay that you focus on them for the time being, but really don't worry about it. Don't worry about it because the rank defining the questions will be the bulk of the questions that you would think that you made silly mistakes in. So don't make silly mistakes in those things. I want to tell you about something that I personally truly believe in. See, outcome of any particular situation, right? Outcome of any particular situation is determined by the factors that went into it, right? So the outcome of any particular situation is determined by the factors that went into it. So the outcome here is your rank. The outcome here is your rank. And the factors that went into it is your hard work and your preparation and your analysis of your GTs and working on your weak areas and you're fixing on your gaps. So unless you change the factors, the outcome will never change. So if you think you're a person who has hit a plateau and whose scores are not improving, change the factors. Obviously your outcome will change. If you're going to make the same mistake again and again and again, your score will remain the same and same and same. So get ready to change the factors. Get ready to change the factors to see the change in your results. Otherwise, your results will not change. I promise you today, it will not change. So vouch now that you will change the factors. You work on your weak areas using this tool that we have provided you. And I would like to end this by saying two important things. The first thing is that you go online now, you have a plethora of options of people offering you, solutions, quick solutions to problems, overnight success solutions, right? Some people say this strategy works, some people say that strategy works, some people say this strategy works, right? It doesn't matter what works. What works is what works for you, right? And how will you know who you are? The only way you will know who you are is if you assess yourself. You understand what you're good at, what you're poor at. Are you a good guesser? Are you a poor guesser? Should you change the answers or should you not change the answers? Once you know who you are, you will write the exams in the best way possible because now you know who you are. Till now it was a mystery. You always thought that you were strong in obs and gyn, but to your shock and awe, the data says that you're poor in your obs and gyn. So now you know your weak area and now you will fix this. No quick fix will do that. You will have to do it. Now, after all of these things, if you still feel unsatisfied that your scores are not improving, they are just not growing as much as you aspired it to grow, let me just end by asking you this one last question. Can you tell me where you were 6 months ago? What was your score 6 months ago? Were you in a position that you are today? Could you have gotten the same scores that you get today? Was your rank exactly the same that was then? No, right? You have definitely improved. You are able to answer questions. Your ranks are improving. Your percentile is improving. Obviously, it is not as much as you aspired for. Obviously, it's not as much as what you wanted, right? But it's still going up. And that is the most important thing that you should focus on. Keep on going up and eventually you will reach your goal. It was so nice to talk to all of you on this auspicious occasion of Diwali. I really think that you take this canvas that we are providing you and paint your success over it. With that said, I hope all of you guys have a happy and safe Diwali. Good night.